This is Patrick Connor from QueensburyRules.com here with the first of what I hope to be a regular show for Queensbury Rules called Boxing with the Beard. Some of you know me as Patrick Connor, that guy who writes obscure history stuff on QueensburyRules.com, and some others of you know me as the Beard for totally abstract, mysterious reasons. And I am here to talk about what we saw on Saturday night. There's really no other fight I could be talking about except for Mike Alvarado versus Brandon Rios 2, the rematch of their absolute slugfest that we saw last October in Carson, California. I was lucky enough to attend both fights live, and I can definitely say that that first fight was probably about tied with Israel Vasquez, Rafa Marquez 3, for the best fight that I've seen live. And I have seen many, if you are wondering. But it was another great fight on this Saturday night at the Mandalay Bay. And there isn't really a whole lot to say about the fight that hasn't already been said by so many boxing scribes and fans. The point is that it was a great fight once again, and we don't really have too much reason to complain. Some of us are Brandon Rios fans, some of us are Mike Alvarado fans. I could see one set of fans getting upset because the decision didn't go their way, and that's totally understandable, but the point is that we saw an absolutely terrific fight. It was a close fight, and it went to a close decision that Mike Alvarado got. Basically, I think that we're in a position now where we could get a third fight, and I don't think too many people would complain about a third fight. I know I wouldn't, but these guys need a rest. They've beaten the hell out of each other twice for us, and I wouldn't mind seeing both of them get a fight in the interim to try to build that third fight up again. It's a natural. Rios took the first fight, Alvarado took the second, and the fight, they just mix. They mix very nicely, and it's great. Basically, there's not a whole lot to compare or draw any type of negative comparison from the second fight to the first fight. It's kind of like if there were some set of boxing deities that came up with an essence, a bottled, concentrated essence of Mike Alvarado versus Brandon Rios. That would have been the first fight that lasted just over half of the 12 rounds. And the rematch would have just been kind of a less condensed version of that. We got just about as much action, just about as much brutality, blood, swelling, effort, heart, determination, everything. It was just drawn out a little longer with some slower moments in between. There weren't a whole lot of slow moments in the first fight. Either way, it was a great fight. Mike Alvarado was able to pull it out with, by sticking to his game plan better than he had in the first fight. I think that he was kind of goaded into a brawl and maybe wanted to be, but probably shouldn't have been. But the other side of the coin is that Brandon Rios made him. He is a guy who suffocates the hell out of you with pressure, and he can punch. So either way, these guys just go together like lamb and tuna fish, as they say, and it's great when they meet each other. So like to see him do it again. On the undercard was the televised undercard was Terrence Crawford versus Brady's Prescott. Basically, I think a lot of us expected that fight to be better than what it was, unfortunately, but that happens. Things just don't live up to expectations, unfortunately. We couldn't have two fights that lived up to, relatively high expectations on the card, I guess. It is boxing, after all. But either way, Terrence Crawford had a good performance against a guy that, in my opinion, he came into the fight with 4 losses, and in those 4 losses, I would say at least 3 of them were situations where he could have done more. He should have done more. He didn't punch enough. He relied too much on one-punch power and a little bit... when he came out after knocking Amir Khan out, and people kind of understood who he was and what he was at that point. I think that it kind of, for whatever reason, set an unreasonable expectation for what he was going to be. And we actually have seen since then that he's a little bit more boxer than puncher. And I think that that's kind of the wrong identity for him if he's going to be throwing so few punches. The point is that he doesn't land enough, he doesn't throw enough. And as I said on Twitter and in my column for QueensburyRules.com, he followed a lot. And that's just not something you can do. If you're relying on one punch power, it's not going to happen. He was getting countered with right hooks all night long when he was throwing out a lazy jab, falling short with his right hand and then getting countered by southpaw lefts. It was not good for him, and I think that the 9-1 type of scores were just about accurate. Terrence Crawford, it wasn't a superbly exciting performance, but it was what it was. It was a win. It got him to a point where now he can start looking towards the 140-pound division more seriously in any event. And he did actually take a handful of punches. He just didn't really seem all that affected by him. I think that there was one point in the, I believe, 7th round where he looked slightly wobbled for a moment. But we know that Prescott can punch a bit, and he took him. He took the shots, he moved on. And so I think that it's about time to put him in with someone else who can steadily apply pressure. And there's so many guys in the 140-pound division who could do that, that it's worth exploring for sure. But in the meantime, I would definitely like to see a little more from him. And I don't mean to discourage anybody getting excited about a younger fighter that can box a bit, has quick hands, etc. But, it was against Brady's Prescott, who has some losses and is kind of an underachiever. So we need to see a little bit more from him, I think. Also on the undercard, I guess the only other two notable fights, I would say most notable fights would be Brett Rather versus Juan Guajardo, I think. And also Jose Ramirez versus Charlie Dubray. And I'll start with the heavyweight fight, Rather and Guajardo. It was a good fight. They threw a lot of punches for heavyweights, although it was only 4 rounds. But, they got to it. They let their hands go, and there's not really a whole lot more than we can expect. Guajardo had Rather down early in the first, or maybe about halfway through the first round. He looked wobbled. Guajardo went after him. And then after that, unfortunately, he gassed out. He didn't stop throwing punches necessarily, but it looked like he threw just about all the power that he had in that first round. And Rather, he got back kind of on the horse, as they say, and got back to work. And in the second round, righted the ship, and in the third and fourth rounds, just actually not only outworked Guajardo, but beat him up a little bit. And so he got the decision. Of course, Brett Rather was one of the 2012 U.S. Olympian alternates. He went to UNLV. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that he has a history of being an athlete. And it kind of showed. He does look to have some athletic tendencies in there, but a big issue that I saw from him is, number one, he's not very tall. They listed him, I think, at 6'1", but he's weighing in at, I believe it was somewhere around 250, 245, 250, and he really just does not move his head that much. And his punching power is, he has a stiff punch, but he doesn't really seem to have one punch power, and those things are going to be a problem for him. In the heavyweight division today, if you're going to be a shorter guy, if you're going to be a guy that doesn't have a lot of power, I think you need to be a really good boxer, and I didn't really see that from him, in my opinion. But it is what it is. The heavyweight division is what it is, which is not good, which means that it's an open door to do something, anything. And there's a chance that he could do something, I guess. But he's only fought, I believe that was his third fight, his third pro fight. He fought fewer than 20 times as an amateur. So he's short on experience, and he could learn. He certainly could learn. I'm not expecting much, but he could learn. And the other fight, of course, Jose Ramirez, who was a 2012 Olympian. He lost in his second match in the Olympics in London, 2012, and he took out a guy who probably didn't really belong in that ring. I almost felt kind of bad for him, actually. It was only Ramirez's second fight. He looked good, and he looked very sharp, but at the same time, the guy that he came in to fight basically came forward and threw punches, literally with his head facing the canvas. He was not going to be putting up any type of stern test, and he didn't. But of course, there's always that narrative of the Olympian thing. We've been kind of searching for that a lot in the U.S. in the last few generations of Olympians. There have been a handful of guys that we've thought were promising that either went to the Olympics or, just barely didn't make it to the Olympics. A lot of guys like Panchito Bojado, Ricardo Williams Jr., guys like that who were basically bombs in terms of what we thought they would be able to do, and that was unfortunate. And so I think that we're always going to be looking towards what the next crop will bring. And of course, before he turned pro, a lot of people thought that Jose Ramirez was going to sign with Golden Boy Promotions and kind of flip the script, and what a handful of writers said was a shocker, and signing for Top Rank. But I don't know. We have to see what happens. He's still early in his career, and he took on a guy that didn't come from a boxing place and didn't really look like he belonged in there, unfortunately. But he has an exciting style. I think that there is some promise for him. And like I said, he looked sharp. He didn't look wild. He didn't look scared or nervous. So there could be something there. And so that brings us, I guess, to the end of the show. Quick show. That's all. I appreciate anybody who tuned in. If you could do me a favor and go to queensburyrules.com, check out some news there. Check out our Facebook page, Queensbury Rules. Check out everybody on Twitter. I believe all the Twitter handles are listed on the Queensbury Rules website. And I hope you guys tune in next time. Thanks a lot. Take it easy.